In this session, we're going to talk about categories of business strategies and the importance of being able to distinguish different categories of business strategies. And we're going to start by looking at the first to market strategy. Now, this means that the products are available before competition is possible. The products are available before the competitors have tooled up to make the product, or even perhaps before the competitors have even thought about the product. So this could be a very innovative product, a new development, perhaps the product of entrepreneurship. The company has researched the market and has identified a niche and is ready to produce and be first to market with that particular product. There should be a strong applied research capability in this case. Applied research means research that's focused in on doing something, and in this case in researching the market to enable it to find out what the market wants and thinks about this product, and tooling up to deliver it, what's involved in making the product and getting it to market. So there should be strong applied research capability. Generally speaking, the company can set a high price to skim the market or set low price to gain market share. So it needs to make a decision about this new product. Should it set a high price and rely on the novelty factor related to the product, the newness of the product, its attraction in the market, or should it set a low price to keep away the competitors, to block the competitors as a barrier to entry? Should it block the competitors by keeping a low price and thereby maintaining its market share, maintaining its position in the market? So it needs to make a decision. The second to market strategy, well, this means a quick imitation of the first to market companies. So some company comes up with an idea that's popular and customers go for it. The second to market will copy the first one. They'll vary it, they'll tweak it in certain ways, but essentially what they're doing is they are trying to get in on the act. They're trying to gain advantage or gain, very crudely, gain revenue as a consequence of this development. So it's copying the existing producers. In this case, there is also less emphasis on applied research and more emphasis on development. So a standard has been set. A company has put a product in the market, and the second to market are able to, in a sense, copy it. So there's less need for research. The second to market can learn from the first to market's mistakes. It can observe what happened when the product was first introduced, what changes in strategy followed its introduction, and it's able to avoid the mistakes that were made by the first company. The next is cost minimization or late to market strategy. Well, this means waiting until the market becomes standardized and large volumes are demanded. So when the market is standardized, when the product is well established and when there is data about the product, the volume it's selling in, the prices, where it's selling, and so on, when all of that has come to light, then a company may decide to enter the market and add its output to the total volume on the market. This, of course, is all assuming that there are no barriers to entry by the first to market. Perhaps they've got a patent or a patent on the product, they've got a legal right to produce it, or they've got some particular barrier to entry. In the absence of barriers to entry, this is what may happen. There may be a second to market which copies the first one, or a late to market which waits until the whole market is settled and then enters and produces volume to try and capitalize on the success of the product. Late to market strategy, well, this competes on the basis of costs instead of product features. It simply takes the product features, it imitates what's successful in the market, and it tries to produce it as cheaply as possible. So it's competition on the basis of costs, rather than competition on the basis of product features or attributes. Research efforts focus on process development versus product development. Whatever efforts there are, generally speaking, in this type of market, in the late to market strategy, whatever efforts there are in terms of research tend to be focused on development, tends to be focused on cost saving. So they simply take the product as a given. That's what sells in the market. So they take the quality of the product, they take the design of the product, they take all its attributes, and they copy it. And their research effort is to try and do it as cheaply as possible. So that's their emphasis, not on product development, but on cost reduction. Now we've got market segmentation. Well, this means serving niche markets. Segmentation means all customers are not the same. Some customers have special requirements, and the customers with the special requirements may constitute niche markets, and companies may aim to satisfy the demand in those niche markets. This means applying engineering skills and flexible manufacturing processes. So it's looking at the requirements of the niche market and then engineering the product that in a way that meets the niche. So it has to have flexibility in terms of its manufacturing and in terms of the way it runs the business, so that niche markets can be accommodated. The requirements of the niche markets can be accommodated. Now this brings us to something called the Balance Scorecard, which is quite a big topic in the area of strategy and one worth looking at in this context. This helps translate the mission and strategy into appropriate performance measures. So this is a bridge between what the mission of the business is, what its strategy is, and moves the strategy into performance measures. So the company can measure the extent to which it's meeting its strategic requirements. Traditionally, organizations relied primarily on financial measures. So in the past, companies looked at all sorts of financial measures, perhaps ratios, or looked at stock turnover or whatever it was. There were all sorts of measures, financial measures, that the company would use to try to gauge its performance. This has been much widened now. The perception nowadays is much wider than the traditional financial measures. No single set of measures can provide information needed in all critical areas of the business. So there's now recognition that different areas of the business require different measures, and these measures may not be financial. They can be based on HR, they can be based on engineering, they can be based on marketing, they can be based on different areas, and the different areas of the business will have their own specific measures of performance. So still, bearing in mind what the company is trying to do here is trying to find out how to measure how effective it is at achieving its strategic objectives. The purpose of the Balance Scorecard is the development of a set of measures that provides a comprehensive view of the organization. So this is a set of measures which, taken together, will provide a view, a comprehensive view of the organization and how the organization is performing. Now, the benefits of using a Balance Scorecard, well, is to clarify and gain consensus of strategy. The Balance Scorecard flags up how well the business is doing in certain areas and which areas need attention. So it clarifies how well the business is doing and how the individual parts of the business are doing. And once it measures those, it looks to gain consensus around whether the strategy is appropriate or the strategy itself needs tweaking or some aspect of the business needs particular attention. It's a good way of communicating strategy. The Balance Scorecard is a way of enabling all the different parts of the business to understand the strategy and understand the importance of their individual parts to the achievement of the overall strategy. So it can also line up the departmental and personal goals. It can demonstrate to individual managers, departmental heads and so on, what their individual goals are, and it can align those with the overall company set of goals, what the business is trying to do. But it can also even go deeper. It could look at personal goals and talk about career aspirations and career development, personal development, professional development, and look at these various goals that people hold within the organization and try to align those with the overall achievement of the business itself, the business strategy itself, trying to bring in the business strategy. So it's using indicators that show up the relationship between the individuals and the business. It helps to ensure strategic objectives are linked to the annual budget. Budgeting is crucially important within the business. Each department may have a budget. The overall business may have a budget. The master budget is made up from separate individual budgets that feed into the master. It's a way of controlling the business. And the strategic objectives of the business must be linked to the annual budget. If the objectives are too ambitious, then the budget cannot sustain those. The budget cannot achieve them. On the other hand, if the strategic objectives are not very ambitious, perhaps the annual budget is not being optimized. It's not being used effectively. Also, there should be timely feedback relating to improving the strategy. If a set of measures can be worked out and individual parts of the business are assessed and an overall picture is gained from the individual components of the business, then the strategy itself can be reviewed periodically and tweaked if need be. So there can be an alignment between what actually happens and what was planned to happen. Now, performance are measured in 4 areas: financial performance, customer performance, internal business process performance, and organizational learning and growth. So we have individual performance is inside of those. Individual performance, the operator's performance is inside of those. The line manager and the departmental heads feed into these various performance indicators. So the efficiency of the business will be reflected in the financial performance. But it'll also be reflected in customer performance. Customers get a speedy product of good quality at the right price. It'll reflect positively on the business. Internal business process performance, how the business operates internally, and also the organizational learning and growth. Is the business advancing? Is it growing? And is it maturing? And has it got better processes internally to capture knowledge and information and better decision making in the future as a consequence of the learning from past experiences. Now, developing a balanced scorecard. Well, top management translates the mission of the business and strategy into specific customer and financial objectives. So the top management must take the mission. What's the business trying to do? What's the strategy of the business? It must take those documents, those statements, and then translate them into customer and financial objectives. So it puts meat on the bones. It says the mission of the business is to become market leader within the next 5 years. Well, next, to translate that, it may say, well, how has the business done in the last year? What are its objectives for the coming year in terms of its competitive position? Will it become market leader in the next year, or how far along the track will it have moved towards becoming market leader? So it's translating the overall mission into something which can be tested, which can be looked at. Measures for internal business processes developed on a basis of customer and financial objectives. So it looks at the internal processes of the business, the efficiency of the marketing, purchasing, procurement, whatever you want to call it, sections, the efficiency of HR in recruiting the right people, the efficiency of production and of the stores and of research and development, all of the different areas of the business, looking at their efficiencies and seeing what are their contribution towards the overall customer and financial objectives achievements. Do they contribute towards satisfying customers and trying to hit the financial objectives? And how can the individual components of the business be given targets that will help them to monitor and gauge their success over a particular time period in their achievement of the overall objectives of the business, their contribution to the overall objectives of the business. Investment in employee training and information technology linked to customer, financial and internal business process objectives. Well, it's important that modern views of business be inculcated and used in the business. And modern views tends to use local area networks within the business for communications, for dissemination of knowledge and information, to keep different managers up to speed with what's happening in terms of their department. The information flows around the business. So it's important that there is investment in this and also adequate training so that all of the operators and managers within the business can get access to the information that they require in order for them to progress the work and try to hit the targets that have been set for them. Now the focus, well, the goal of business strategy is to establish and maintain a unique strength or focus that leads to a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, the idea is to get a sustainable competitive advantage. The business may have many competitors, so it's a question of out-competing them. It's a question of looking at its strengths, adding to the strength, looking at its weaknesses and reducing the weaknesses. But they must be identified in advance. And there must be some sort of benchmark to say this is a weakness. There must be a benchmark to say that is a strength. But having identified them, then build on the strengths and reduce the weaknesses to get a sustainable competitive advantage. Two successful competitive positions may be adopted. One is to reduce costs. Well, that's a perennial drive of business. Businesses are always on the lookout to reduce costs. But nonetheless, it's worth stating. And the second is to build outstanding strength, build a reputation, build a reputation for good quality, timely delivery, customer satisfaction. But the two taken together, the good quality, the timely delivery, customer satisfaction, that must be done at lowest cost. And that is the problem confronting business. Now, common areas of focus. Well, look into innovation. That's one way in which businesses hope that they can reduce costs and develop products which will be successful in the market. Customize products so that customer needs are met uniquely. Product and service flexibility, being able to meet the requirements of the customers when the customers want. Being able to adjust the output of the business in terms of the volume, being able to step it up when there's increased demand, being able to tone it down a little when there is less demand, and at the same time monitor costs to ensure costs have not varied significantly as the volume has changed. Performance. Look at the performance of the business in terms of some measures. It could be ratios, or it could be the capacity of the business to meet budgetary requirements or meet sales targets or whatever. Have some sort of measure of performance that have been agreed so that the business can be monitored on a regular basis. Look at the quality of the product to make sure that the quality is not just maintained but is improving. Try to look at the reliability of the product, that when the customer receives the product, it's reliable. It's not just good quality, but it will do what was promised. It will function in the way in which it was promised, and it will be reliable. And deliver it when the customer wants, according to the order that was placed and agreed. Once the order is placed and agreed, then deliver it on time. And respond to any information required by the customer. Keep the customer up to date, perhaps, with the status of the order. And have after-sales service, which means that the customer feels that when they've bought the product and taken delivery of the product, they're still not on their own. There still is support from the company about the product. And of course, make sure that the price is acceptable. The price is competitive. In fact, try to undercut the competitors, if possible, to make it good value for money. Now, order qualifiers and winners. Well, order qualifiers are characteristics that are ante to the entry into the market. These are what qualify the company to even contemplate thinking about producing this product. They may look at their existing equipment, the existing technology they have, the training of the workforce, and decide that is a line of production they can enter. They're qualified to enter because they've got the resources. Order winners are characteristics that win customers' purchases. This could be design, reliability. In fact, the points we just mentioned earlier, price, the quality of the product, these are what win the orders, the reputation of the business. Now, loss of focus. Well, sometimes companies will want to introduce new products, which means they're losing the focus on their existing production. They may be switching over to developing something new, a new output. well, that may be detrimental to the existing one. It's important, if the existing one is making a significant contribution to the welfare and the health of the business, that the existing product is maintained. So new outputs can be a distraction. They may be very profitable, or in fact they may prove to be a disaster. But there's a loss of focus on the original possible in this situation. The new attributes of all sorts of aspects of the business, new attributes of new machines lead to a loss of focus on perhaps the key functions that are required. It could be the case that the technical side of both machines with extra functionality, but perhaps functionality that was not necessarily needed. It's a loss of focus. It's drifting away from the core mission of the business, which was to produce a particular product and supply a particular market. So new outputs and new attributes can represent a change of direction, which shifts it away from the original emphasis that the business had on the original product. And of course, new outputs, new attributes, new tasks. New tasks take time to perform. It takes personnel, it takes people. It may take away key people from the existing line of production. So introducing new products needs to be carefully planned to ensure that the existing line of production is maintained. And there is a need for departmental professionalism. In other words, the department must keep its feet on the ground. It must say, this line of production, the original line of production, is our bread and butter. This is what's paying the bills. And this is what we need to ensure is right. They may want to create some slack, if they can, to dedicate to new products or tooling up for new products or looking into the design of new products or what's required. Or, in other words, it's prepared to dedicate some resources to the development of new products, but it's maintaining the existing level at a high standard, because that is the core of what the business is. There can be an issue about ignorance and non-communications. In any business, there can be a loss of focus because communication systems are not good, or there is confusion about communications, there's misinterpretation of communications, there is a lack of knowledge within different parts of the business about other parts of the business and about what they do and how they do it. So it's important that the business is welded together, that they each know what each department is doing. And of course all of this changes with the life cycle, the life cycle of the product. Product requirements tend to change over time. Manufactured products tend to change. The requirements of the customers tend to change. There may be innovations required, and the old product will reach maturity and then decline. Product life cycle analysis is common, and we've got several sessions on this in various classes on the course. But essentially it follows that sort of sigmoid shape, that sort of S-shaped curve. It's introduced, and then the sales will increase rapidly in the growth period, and then it'll tend to decline, mature and decline. Well, as it matures and declines, the company may enter a period of uncertainty and enter a period where it's losing the focus on this particular product and looking around for alternatives. So these were some ideas about various aspects of strategy and how strategy works out within the organization. The Balance Scorecard is a very important development, and one which is often talked and cited in the business literature. So people often talk about it, and it's important to know what it is. Essentially, it's the translation of the strategy into measures which can be identified by departmental heads and by various departments to see if they are on track or not, if they're going to achieve their overall targets. That's all I'm going to deal with in this talk. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.